If you ever come across a Roblox game called Where You Sleep, do not play it. If you try to search up the game yourself, you'll get nothing but an error page. Something tells me that I was not supposed to come across this game, and after what I saw, I'm convinced this was someone's confession of a gruesome crime. It was free too, so I thought I found the perfect game to play to kill some time. The game had 14,000 players and positive reviews, so with a cup of coffee, I finally launched it. I clicked New Game, and I was ready for some action. At first it came out exactly as expected, just like your typical Roblox horror game, except I didn't see another soul in sight. Maybe it was a single-player game. My character was standing in a dark room, and there was a single door in the distance, illuminated by a dim light bulb on top of it. I was prepared for any jump scares the dev was about to throw at me on this short path. They always do that. But to my surprise, this game didn't have any. I was starting to think the player count was a visual glitch. I walked to the door and opened it to reveal a dimly lit apartment. I was expecting a jump scare here, but nothing happened. No scary music, no scary noises, nothing. I reached for the light switch inside and turned it on. The hall illuminated, and I instantly got surprised, not realizing why. Seconds later, I realized why. The room looked quite similar to mine. The bed, the TV, and most of the other furniture were arranged in the same manner. It was quite strange, especially in a game called Where You Sleep, but I just stupidly brushed it off. I spent a couple more minutes checking out the room to discover some more surprising coincidences and went to explore the kitchen. I was not really amused by the lacking amount of horror, but I was quite interested in the design decisions. The kitchen was also quite like mine. The table had 2 chairs by it, just like mine. The sink was by the window, and the fridge was quite similar too, except mine was a bit bigger and black, and the game one was green. Then something caught my attention that made my jaw drop. There was a cereal box on the table, a plate with a piece of bread, and a half-finished glass of milk. That was too much of a coincidence. I blinked a couple of times, and even bothered to stand up from the screen and double-check my own kitchen. You guessed it, the very same items were aligned on my real-world breakfast spot. This was getting a bit weird and a bit unnerving, to be honest. It became even more suspicious when I navigated the character to the bathroom, as other similarities popped up. There was a single t-shirt in the washing machine, and the bathrobe was lying on the floor. It was the same as mine, and there was also no toilet paper when I used my last roll this morning. What the hell is this game? Is it like watching me or something? And just for the record, I don't have a webcam or anything that could capture the insides of my apartment. That's so effing creepy. Am I being watched? But why and who would install the cameras? To create a crappy indie game? No way, I thought. Since there was not much else to see in the game, I shut it down and checked my apartment for any traces of the intrusion. I'm not James Bond, but I did my best to look around for hidden devices and found none. It was getting late, so I decided to go to sleep. After waking up, I had mostly forgotten about the game. That was until I came back from the supermarket, and my computer showed that a new update to Where You Sleep was downloaded. I launched it out of curiosity, and when I saw what the update added, my blood ran cold. The patch added more details to the surroundings. Now it looked exactly like my place. Even the bowl I used for keeping keys at the door looked identical, and had the same dent. I could read the book titles on the shelves, the same as mine, and the fridge in the kitchen was now bigger and colored black. There was no explanation. I went to the game discussion forums. There were a couple of messages from players stating the devs are lazy with updates and how the whole thing sucked. I dropped my own comment saying, "Devs, what the F is going on?" And I described my experience with the game. Several hours later, I checked the responses. Other users were posting that my topic is a stupid PR move and asking me to get a life. But in the evening, I discovered that my query was deleted from the message board with no explanation. That's when I saw that a new update had been released. I had to see, so I launched the game, and with trembling excitement, navigated the character through the door. Not much had changed since the last time, the same things in their common spots. I walked around the room a bit, and went to see the kitchen. As my character was inspecting the insides of a cupboard, my jaw dropped. I was so focused on the game, but that when somebody knocked on my door, it almost made me scream.
Reddit, what is your most disturbing, scary, or creepy real story? Serious. So I was sleeping, and in the middle of the dream a character of my dream who was doing something, turned her head, looked at me very seriously and said, "There's someone in your apartment, wake up." I nearly had a goddamn heart attack, and my apartment was empty. While in my basement on the computer, I saw what appeared to be a white tissue dropping from up near the ceiling, from the corner of my eye, about 5 feet away. When I looked over, I didn't see anything resembling a napkin on the ground or elsewhere. Noped the hell out of my basement for a while. Woke up, clock says 3:34 a.m. I'm 17 and in my bedroom. It's pitch black but I hear some rattling downstairs. Terrified, I quietly tiptoe to my parents' room. Weird, it's empty. Where are my parents at 3:34 a.m.? Go upstairs to my brother's room. He's usually awake all night, but while the light is on, no one is in the room. So I guess whatever those noises are downstairs, it must be them. Why are they awake? Maybe someone died. I go downstairs. In the middle of my living room is what looks like 2 men stealing our TV. No one else is in sight. I run upstairs as quietly as possible, shut and lock my door. Suddenly there's banging on the door. I wake up. It was a dream and the relief washes over me. I look over at the clock. Weird coincidence. It's 3:34 a.m. I'm shaking, but decide to go downstairs to prove to myself that everything's fine. I go downstairs. The 2 men are in my kitchen, screaming at my parents and brother. I run upstairs to my bedroom and lock the door. 10 seconds later I hear banging. I woke up. It's 3:34 a.m. This time I had actually woken up and I don't manage to fall back asleep for about 36 hours. What's your scariest, most disturbing true story? I was 12 years old, and we were 3 kids sharing 2 bedrooms. So my dad decided to put up a half wall to make a third. If I stood on my bed, I could see into my brother's room. We were young and used to throw a ball over before falling asleep. One night I was just drifting off when my mom taps me on the shoulder and says PSSSD. What are you doing? I thought, that's a very weird question, obviously I'm sleeping. So I turn around to answer her, only it's not my mom. It's not a person. It looked like a 3D shadow of a man. Just black. I screamed while my eyes were closed, the figure disappeared. My mom and dad came running into my room. I tell them everything. They think it's just my imagination, but tell me if I'm scared to go sleep in the room with my brother. I tried to sleep but I was shook. My brother woke up once to go use the bathroom upstairs and I pretended I was asleep. I didn't want him to know I was still afraid. I hear him go into my room, right next door, climb on the bed, springs, and then just stopped. I thought he was trying to purposefully scare me, so I look up to show him I'm awake, and see the figure again. Arms crossed with its head resting on his hands. Even though it had no facial features whatsoever, I knew it was looking at me. I try to convince myself it's just dark, it's my brother playing a prank and I'm seeing things. Then I heard the toilet flush upstairs. It was just that one night. I never saw anything like it again, or even close. But years later, in my 20s, I was living alone and felt the tap on my shoulder. PSSSD. What are you doing? I'll stop there cause you'll think I'm crazy. But that was the last time I heard it. And I'm 31 now. It's not a ghost story. I will remember that day until I die.
What is your most disturbing, scary, or creepy real story? Over the past week my son had been much quieter than normal. I knew something was wrong, so I mentioned it to him and asked him if he was okay. He was reluctant to tell me at first, but after some gentle persuasion he told me that there was a monster hiding under his bed every night. I assumed it was just his imagination playing tricks on him and reassured him. I told him I'd read him a bedtime story that night and make sure he was safe. He seemed to be more at ease now. When the time came for him to go to bed, he was nervous and on edge but said something that for some reason stuck with me. He told me how the monster under his bed was just like him, and copied everything he did. Strange. Fast forward 10 minutes and I've just finished reading him his bedtime story. He turns to me and says, "Daddy, please can you check for monsters under my bed?" For his own amusement I take a look under his bed. What I saw will haunt me forever. Lying under the bed, quivering with fear is my son. He looks me in the eyes and whispers, "Daddy, the monster is lying on my bed."
I didn't expect to shock the dentist, but I had my first trip to the dentist last week. I do mean first, too. I don't think I ever went growing up. Mom said baby teeth didn't matter since I was going to lose them anyway, and the little dentist would protect my permanent teeth perfectly well, so there was no point in throwing perfectly good money away for some huckster to look at my teeth and say they were perfectly fine. Mom had pretty strong opinions about dentists. She had pretty strong opinions about a lot of things, really. But I've been out and living on my own for a lot of years now. A few months back I was thinking that it was probably worth going to a dentist at least once, just to make sure everything really was okay. So I read some online reviews and called a place nearby, and I had my first dental appointment last week. It was fine at first. I filled out some paperwork, they brought me back to a sort of awkwardly reclined leather chair. I sat around and played with my phone while I waited for the hygienist to come to join me. All is as expected so far. The hygienist even complimented me on my teeth when I first opened up, saying how clean and white they were. So I was feeling pretty good. I'll be honest, I'd been a little worried that they were going to find all kinds of cavities and have to do root canals and tooth extractions. I didn't have any reason for thinking this. I've never had a problem with my teeth at all. But you know how it is. But then she started scraping at the base of one of my teeth with a little metal pick. She leaned forward, bringing the light closer, and squinted at the pick, and then into my mouth. "What's up?" I asked indistinctly, speaking around her fingers. "You've just got a little something at the base of your tooth, down in the gum line. It's not plaque, I don't think." She moved the pick away, and something glistened on the tip. It was a tiny sphere, perfectly round, no bigger than the head of a pin. "Aren't those from the little dentists?" I asked. "The what?" she said. "The little dentists," I repeated. She gave me a look of confusion, and I realized that she hadn't just misheard me. She had no idea what I was talking about. I was embarrassed because I thought maybe it was just some stupid childhood name for them that everyone else had grown out of using, and I never had because I never went to the dentist. So I tried to explain. "The cleaners? Like the little mouth things that go between your teeth? Flossing?" she asked. "That wouldn't be in your gum line like this, even if it did leave anything behind. And you wouldn't get anything more than a piece of string, anyway. Nothing like this. There are a lot of them," she added, peering into my mouth again. "It looks like they're all along the gums, at the base of your teeth." She poked around a bit more with the pick, scraping a few more of the tiny gelic dots free. I didn't bother to correct her about floss because obviously, I wasn't talking about floss. It seemed like she legitimately didn't know about the little dentists, the things that live in your mouth and clean your teeth. And I knew that not everyone had them. My mother had told me not to talk about them growing up, that not everyone would receive them when they started getting their adult teeth, and it was rude to brag about them. But it had never occurred to me that someone working in a dentist's office might not know. The hygienist went to fetch the dentist, and I figured that he'd set her straight. But when he came in, he seemed just as puzzled as to what she'd found. I really think you've just got an egg, I told them, and they both turned to look at me. Have you been eating caviar? The dentist asked. No. A dentist egg whatever, you know what I mean. Seriously, have you not heard of these? You've never had a patient with the little dentists? The dentist shook his head. I have no idea what you're talking about. They're like cleaner shrimp, I guess, only for people. They live in your gums, and come out to clean up food and plaque. He was still staring at me like I was talking nonsense, and I was starting to get annoyed. Look, get your magnifying glass or whatever, and come take a look for yourself. They can't be that hard to find. They come out all the time. I see them. I'm sure you can find one. You're telling me that you think you have worms living in your mouth. I'm telling you that I do have worms living in my mouth. I can't believe you don't know about this. Look, just find one. Maybe I'm explaining it badly or something. The dentist shook his head, but he began carefully poking around in my mouth. Back by one of my molars, I felt a little dentist shift, the small tickling sensation they always caused along my gums. Go to the back, I told the dentist, the one with the tools. He peered in, then suddenly recoiled, exclaiming, "What is that?" I rolled my eyes at him and gestured to my mouth, trying to keep still to avoid disturbing the little dentist so this so-called professional could take a look. Carefully, he leaned back in, using a pair of tweezers to pull it forth. It was longer than I expected, taking several seconds of steady pressure to slide free from my gum. I'd always thought of the little dentists as, well, little, but clearly they kept more of themselves coiled up and out of view than I'd expected. This one measured 5 or 6 inches long, although it was no thicker than a string. It coiled its body around the tweezers, unhappy to be out in the air. The dentist poked at it cautiously with his gloved hand, watching it move. I've never seen anything like this. You thought these were, ouch. The dentist suddenly shook his hand, sending the tweezers and the little dentist flying into the sink to clatter into the drain. The dentist ignored this, instead stretching out the latex to peer at the glove covering his hand. Everything all right? I asked. Yes, it's nothing. It's fine. Tell me more about these worms. You've always had them? I started to get uncomfortable. It wasn't ever exactly taboo to talk about the little dentists. I'd just never done it, is all. And the dentist's tone was making me feel like a lab experiment. It was becoming pretty clear that these were not common, and that maybe my mother had undersold it a bit when she told me that not everyone got to have them. Yeah, I said, shrugging. Basically. I need to get another one, he said, reaching for my mouth again. Whoa, hey, I pushed his hands back, leaning away. I can't feel any more out right now. You can't just go digging for them. Let me look, he insisted. No. Look, I don't even know how many there are. You've taken out some of their eggs, you took one of the dentists, just maybe cool it, huh? Look, I'll come back another day and you can get one then. Fine, said the dentist, though his impatience was clear. Tomorrow. I was thinking more like next month, or at least next week, I said. He shook his head. This is an amazing opportunity, an amazing discovery. Please, tomorrow. I can use the time to get ready, anyway, I agreed, just to be able to get out of there. He followed me to the front desk and insisted that the receptionist clear a spot for me in his schedule. I saw him reading my information over her shoulder, and I knew that if I didn't show up, he'd probably end up calling or even coming to my house. I felt kind of trapped, but I didn't really know what to do. The next day, though, I got a call from the dentist's office, asking me to reschedule. The dentist was under the weather, they said, and wouldn't be in that day. And then 2 days after that, I got a mass distribution email from the dentist's office announcing his unexpected death. They stressed that his illness had not appeared to be viral in nature and that no reason for patients should be concerned. I'm not concerned. It's pretty clear that the little dentist didn't much like being hauled out of his home like that. He might have been a tiny little thing, but he wasn't defenseless. As for me, I think the only dentists I need are the little ones I can feel sliding over my tongue right now. I'm done with the full-sized kind.
What is the most disturbing thing you have ever discovered? 8 months ago I won $2 million on a lotto ticket. I gave my parents $200,000 each and kept the rest for myself. I started to browse the internet for houses that matched my liking. I found one and moved in. Everything was perfect. Some time passed again. My parents just left after visiting once again. It was about 6 p.m. I decided to head out for some dinner. I came home and started to get ready for bed. I laid in bed and fell asleep. I was awoken by what sounded like a scream outside my window. My eyes shot open. I watched the curtains move in the breeze as I listened to it echo in the night silence. It scared the crap out of me. My heart was in my throat. I started to calm down when I remembered that foxes made similar noises. Effing fox, I murmured to myself. I started to drift off when it happened again. This time it sounded closer than the other. I sighed and got up out of bed. I was still a little on edge, but I pushed through the fear. I peered out the window towards the tall trees. I peered around but to no avail. I looked at the hardwood floor for a second, then looked back up. Behind a tree around 100 feet away I saw something move. I gasped and then closed the window. I ran back to bed and hid under the covers. The reason for my panic was a story my grandpa told me when I was 14. He told me about a creature called a skinwalker. He described it as a large humanoid creature with dark skin and no hair. It can disguise itself as an animal or human and make sounds like a scream or mimic the voice of a loved one or friend to drag you in. The only way it could be stopped was to shoot it with a silver bullet. This idea was running through my mind. I stayed under the covers for about 10 minutes. There have been no screams since then. Over time I started to calm down. I had to use the bathroom, so I got up and walked towards the door. I stopped moving for a second to itch my ankle when I heard a whimper outside. I froze. It sounded like a dog or some other small animal. In my mind, I thought, stop being a wuss. It's probably just a dog or something. Skinwalkers aren't even real, you idiot. I snapped out of my haze and continued to the bathroom. I finished in there and walked out. Before returning to bed I peered towards my front door. Something was blocking the window. There is a porch light so I could tell something was there. I thought that maybe it was a desk I ordered that might have shown up sometime after I went to sleep. I watched the mass for about 5 seconds when my heart dropped. I watched as the mass slowly shrank below the window of the door. I started to hear the whimper again, this time muffled by the front door. I laid my back behind the wall by the stairs and pulled out my phone. I started to dial the number of one of my neighbors, Paul. I called Paul because he is a professional hunter. He has a lot of weapons so he was the best choice. He didn't pick up the first 2 calls but picked up the third. In a groggy, annoyed voice he said, "What? I need help. There is something at my door whimpering," I said, my voice trembling. "Like what?" This time he sounded more interested. I'm not sure. I think of some sort of animal," I said. "Hold on." I heard the phone scuffle around a bit, then he spoke again. "Looks like a small dog," he said. His bedroom window had a perfect view of my front door. "Please don't think I'm crazy but I swear I saw it shrink," I said, feeling like an idiot. Dead silence. "Hello?" I asked. "Did you say shrink?" Yeah, why?" He paused for a moment and started up again. "Here's what I want you to do. Stay where you are. Try not to make any noise. If anything changes you need to tell me, okay? I'm gonna grab my rifle," he said confidently. "Okay," I whispered. About 2 minutes passed. I could hear Paul moving and doing stuff in his house. Finally, he came back on. "Alright, I'm gonna open the window," he said. I peered around the corner and looked out the transom window. I could see his window slide open. I heard him rack his rifle. "Alright," he said. I waited about 3 seconds until Paul spoke up again.
I don't see anything there."
As he said this I realized that the whimpering had ceased. "I can't hear the whimper anymore," I said. "That's not good. Listen, I need you to make a decision. Either make a run for my house or I make a run to you." He exclaimed. "Well, you have the firearm, so could you come here?" I said. He sighed. "Alright. I'm coming." He hung up the phone. About 8 seconds later I heard his front door opening from my bedroom window. It took around a minute but finally, I heard a knock on the door. Relief washed over me. I started to walk down the stairs. About halfway down Paul shouted out to me, "It's safe to come to the door. Hurry." I sped up and started to unlock the door when I remembered what my grandpa said. It can make sounds like a scream or mimic the voice of a loved one or friend to drag you in. I stopped in my tracks and started to back up from the door. I headed back up the stairs and decided to peer out my bedroom window. There in the street was Paul, not moving. I turned white as a ghost. The person at the door wasn't Paul. It was the creature. I didn't know what to do next but I came up with a plan. I was gonna distract the creature by throwing something behind my house. When I knew it was there I was gonna run out the front door into the street and grab Paul's firearm. When the creature comes back around I will end it. If Paul knew what it was he must have had silver bullets loaded. I grabbed a vase from the hallway and headed toward the bathroom again. I slowly started to open the window. I made sure the coast was clear and dropped the vase onto the ground. I heard the creature scurry away from the front deck. I quickly ran towards the front door. I unlocked it and swung it open. I made a break for Paul who was now lifeless. I shouted at the creature asking it to show itself. The road fell silent. After about 10 seconds I saw it galloping out from the side of my house on all fours. I raised the firearm and unloaded, closing my eyes. My eyes peeled open. The creature was in a fetal position on the ground, back onto me. This thing must have been 10 feet tall. It was huge. I racked the firearm and started to approach. Slowly but surely I crept my way up towards it. I was about 6 feet away. I raised the firearm again. The thing jumped up and ran away into the woods, whimpering the whole way. Finally, this thing was over. I pulled out my phone and called 911. I explained what happened, not expecting them to believe me. At this point, a few neighbors down the road were woken up by the shots and came to see what happened. The police arrived in about 15 minutes. Soon after that black vans with tinted windows rolled up. Government. I knew right away why they were there. I was questioned all night. I wasn't allowed to stay in my house for about a month. I didn't want to stay either. The government offered to buy the house after I expressed my urge to leave.